Robin McLaurin Williams was an American actor and comedian. Known for his improvisational skills and the wide variety of characters he created on the spur of the moment and portrayed on film, in dramas and comedies alike, he is regarded as one of the greatest comedians of all time. Williams began performing stand-up comedy in San Francisco and Los Angeles during the mid-1970s, and rose to fame playing the alien Mork in the ABC sitcom Mork and Mindy. After his first leading film role in Popeye, he starred in several critically and commercially successful films, including The World According to Garp, Moscow on the Hudson, Good Morning, Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, Awakenings, The Fisher King, Patch Adams, 1 Hour Photo, and World's Greatest Dad. He also starred in box office successes such as Hook, Aladdin, Mrs. Doubtfire, Jumanji, The Birdcage, Good Will Hunting, and The Night at the Museum trilogy. He was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, winning Best Supporting Actor for Good Will Hunting. He also received 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, 6 Golden Globe Awards, 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards, and 5 Grammy Awards. On August 11, 2014, at age 63, Williams died by suicide at his home in Paradise Cay, California. His autopsy revealed undiagnosed Lewy body disease. Early life. Robin McLaurin Williams was born at St. Luke's Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, on July 21, 1951. His father, Robert Fitzgerald Williams, was a senior executive in Ford's Lincoln Mercury division. His mother, Lori McLaurin, was a former model from Jackson, Mississippi, whose great-grandfather was Mississippi Senator and Governor Anselm J. McLaurin. Williams had 2 older half-brothers, a paternal half-brother, Robert, and a maternal half-brother, McLaurin. While his mother was a practitioner of Christian Science, Williams was raised in his father's Episcopal faith. During a television interview on Inside the Actors Studio in 2001, Williams credited his mother as an important early influence on his humor, and he tried to make her laugh to gain attention. Williams attended public elementary school in Lake Forest at Gordon Elementary School and middle school at Deer Path Junior High School. He described himself as a quiet child who did not overcome his shyness until he became involved with his high school drama department. His friends recall him as very funny. In late 1963, when Williams was 12, his father was transferred to Detroit. The family lived in a 40-room farmhouse on 20 acres in suburban Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, where he was a student at the private Detroit Country Day School. He excelled in school, where he was on the school's wrestling team and was elected class president. As both his parents worked, Williams was partially raised by the family's maid, who was his main companion. When he was 16, his father took early retirement and the family moved to Tiburon, California. Following their move, Williams attended Redwood High School in nearby Larkspur. At the time of his graduation in 1969, he was voted most likely not to succeed and funniest by his classmates. After high school graduation, Williams enrolled at Claremont Men's College in Claremont, California, to study political science. He dropped out to pursue acting. Williams studied theater for 3 years at the College of Marin, a community college in Kentfield, California. According to the College of Marin's drama professor, James Dunn, the depth of the young actor's talent became evident when he was cast in the musical Oliver as Fagin. Williams often improvised during his time in the drama program, leaving cast members in hysterics. Dunn called his wife after one late rehearsal to tell her Williams was going to be something special. In 1973, Williams attained a full scholarship to the Juilliard School in New York City. He was one of 20 students accepted into the freshman class, and he and Christopher Reeve were the only 2 accepted by John Houseman into the advanced program at the school that year. William Hurt and Mandy Patinkin were also classmates. According to biographer Jean D'Orsonville, Franklin Seals and Williams were roommates at Juilliard. Reeve remembered his first impression of Williams when they were new students at Juilliard. He wore tie-dyed shirts with tracksuit bottoms and talked a mile a minute. I'd never seen so much energy contained in one person. He was like an untied balloon that had been inflated and immediately released. I watched in awe as he virtually caromed off the walls of the classrooms and hallways. To say that he was on would be a major understatement. Williams and Reeve had a class in dialects taught by Edith Skinner, who Reeve said was one of the world's leading voice and speech teachers. According to Reeve, Skinner was bewildered by Williams and his ability to instantly perform in many different accents. Their primary acting teacher was Michael Kahn, who was equally baffled by this human dynamo. Williams already had a reputation for being funny, but Kahn criticized his antics as simple stand-up comedy. In a later production, Williams silenced his critics with his well-received performance as an old man in Tennessee Williams's Night of the Iguana. Reeve wrote, "He simply was the old man. I was astonished by his work and very grateful that fate had thrown us together." The two remained close friends until Reeve's death in 2004. Their friendship was like brothers from another mother, according to Williams's son Zach. During the summers of 1974, 1975, and 1976, Williams worked as a busboy at the Trident in Sausalito, California. He left Juilliard during his junior year in 1976 at the suggestion of Houseman, who said there was nothing more Juilliard could teach him. Gerald Friedman, another of his teachers at Juilliard, said Williams was a genius and that the school's conservative and classical style of training did not suit him. No one was surprised that he left. Career: stand-up comedy. Williams began performing stand-up comedy in the San Francisco Bay Area in 1976. He gave his first performance at the Holy City Zoo, a comedy club in San Francisco, where he worked his way up from tending bar. In the 1960s, San Francisco was a center for a rock music renaissance, hippies, drugs, and a sexual revolution, and in the late 1970s, Williams helped lead its comedy renaissance, writes critic Gerald Nachman. Williams says he found out about drugs and happiness during that period, adding that he saw the best brains of my time turn to mud. Williams moved to Los Angeles and continued performing stand-up at clubs, including the Comedy Store. There, in 1977, he was seen by TV producer George Schlatter, who asked him to appear on a revival of his show Laugh-In. The show aired in late 1977 and was his debut TV appearance. That year, Williams also performed a show at the LA Improv for home box office. While the Laugh-In revival failed, it led Williams into his television career. He continued performing stand-up at comedy clubs such as the Roxy to help keep his improvisational skills sharp. In England, Williams performed at the Fighting Cocks. With his success on Mork and Mindy, Williams began to reach a wider audience with his stand-up comedy, starting in the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, including 3 HBO comedy specials, Off the Wall, An Evening with Robin Williams, and A Night at the Met. Williams won a Grammy Award for Best Comedy Album for the recording of his 1979 live show at the Copacabana in New York City, Reality. What a Concept. David Letterman, who knew Williams for nearly 40 years, recalls seeing him first perform as a new comedian at the Comedy Store in Hollywood, where Letterman and other comedians had already been doing stand-up. "He came in like a hurricane," said Letterman, who said he then thought to himself, "Holy crap, there goes my chance in show business." Williams said that, partly due to the stress of performing stand-up, he started using drugs and alcohol early in his career. He further said that he neither drank nor took drugs while on stage, but occasionally performed when hung over from the previous day. During the period he was using cocaine, he said it made him paranoid when performing on stage. Williams once described the life of stand-up comedians as follows. "It's a brutal field, man. They burn out. It takes its toll. Plus, the lifestyle, partying, drinking, drugs. If you're on the road, it's even more brutal. You gotta come back down to mellow your ass out, and then performing takes you back up. They flame out because it comes and goes. Suddenly they're hot, and then somebody else is hot. Sometimes they get very bitter. Sometimes they just give up. Sometimes they have a revival thing and they come back again. Sometimes they snap. The pressure kicks in. You become obsessed and then you lose that focus that you need." 34-35. Some, such as the critic Vincent Canby, were concerned that his monologues were so intense that it seemed as though at any minute his creative process could reverse into a complete meltdown. His biographer, Emily Herbert, described his intense, utterly manic style of stand-up defies analysis, beyond energetic, beyond frenetic, dangerous, because of what it said about the creator's own mental state. Williams felt secure that he would not run out of ideas, as the constant change in world events would keep him supplied. He also explained that he often used free association of ideas while improvising in order to keep the audience interested. The competitive nature of the show made things difficult. For example, some comedians said that Williams had stolen their jokes, which Williams strongly denied. David Brenner claims that he confronted Williams's agent and threatened bodily harm if he heard Williams utter another one of his jokes. Whoopi Goldberg defended him, asserting that it is difficult for comedians not to reuse another comedian's material, and that it is done all the time. He later avoided going to performances of other comedians to deter similar accusations. During a Playboy interview in 1992, Williams was asked whether he ever feared losing his balance between his work and his life. He replied, "There's that fear if I felt like I was becoming not just dull but a rock, that I still couldn't speak, fire off or talk about things, if I'd start to worry or got too afraid to say something. If I stop trying, I get afraid." While he attributed the recent suicide of novelist Jerzy Kosinski to his fear of losing his creativity and sharpness, Williams felt he could overcome those risks. For that, he credited his father for strengthening his self-confidence, telling him to never be afraid of talking about subjects which were important to him. Williams's stand-up work was a consistent thread throughout his career, as seen by the success of his one-man show Robin Williams, live on Broadway. In 2004, he was voted 13th on Comedy Central's list of 100 greatest stand-ups of all time. After a 6-year hiatus, in August 2008, Williams announced a new 26-city tour, Weapons of Self-Destruction. The tour began at the end of September 2009 and concluded in New York on December 3, and was the subject of an HBO special on December 8, 2009. Television. Mork and Mindy / None. Later appearances. Film. The first film role credited to Robin Williams is a small part in the 1977 low-budget comedy Can I Do It? Till I Need Glasses. His first starring performance, however, is as the title character in Popeye, in which Williams showcased the acting skills previously demonstrated in his television work. Accordingly, the film's commercial disappointment was not blamed on his performance. He went on to star as the leading character in The World According to Garp, which Williams considered may have lacked a certain madness on screen, but it had a great core. He continued with other smaller roles in less successful films, such as The Survivors and Club Paradise, though he said these roles did not help advance his film career. His first major break came from his starring role in director Barry Levinson's Good Morning, Vietnam, which earned Williams a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Actor. The film is set in 1965 during the Vietnam War, with Williams playing the role of Adrian Cronar, a radio shock jock who keeps the troops entertained with comedy and sarcasm. Williams was allowed to play the role without a script, improvising most of his lines. Over the microphone, he created voice impressions of people, including Walter Cronkite, Gomer Pyle, Elvis Presley, Mr. Ed, and Richard Nixon. "We just let the cameras roll," said producer Mark Johnson, and Williams managed to create something new for every single take. Dramatic roles. Voice roles. Later films. Stage work. Williams appeared opposite Steve Martin at Lincoln Center in an off-Broadway production of Waiting for Godot in 1988. He headlined his own one-man show, Robin Williams, live on Broadway, which played at the Broadway Theatre in July 2002. He made his Broadway acting debut in Rajiv Joseph's Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo, which opened at the Richard Rodgers Theatre on March 31, 2011. Internet. Williams was the host of a talk show for Audible that aired in April 2000 and was only available on Audible's website. Additional works. Theater. Discography. Reality. What a Concept. Throbbing Python of Love. A Night at the Met. Live 2002. Weapons of Self-Destruction. Personal Life. Marriages and Children. Williams married his first wife, Valerie Velarde, in June 1978, following a live-in relationship with comedian Elaine Busselver. Velarde and Williams met in 1976 while he was working as a bartender at a tavern in San Francisco. Their son, Zachary Pym Zach Williams, was born in 1983. Velarde and Williams were divorced in 1988. While it was reported that Williams began an affair with Zachary's nanny, Marcia Garces in 1986, Velarde stated in the 2018 documentary Robin Williams, "Come Inside My Mind" that the relationship with Garces began after the two had separated. On April 30, 1989, Williams married Garces, who was 6 months pregnant with his child. They had 2 children, Zelda Ray Williams and Cody Allen Williams. In March 2008, Garces filed for divorce from Williams, citing irreconcilable differences. Their divorce was finalized in 2010. Williams married his third wife, graphic designer Susan Schneider, on October 22, 2011, in St. Helena, California. The two lived at their house in Sea Cliff, San Francisco, California. Williams said, "My children give me a great sense of wonder. Just to see them develop into these extraordinary human beings." Other interests. In New York City, Williams was part of the West Side YMCA runners running team and showed promising results with 34:21 minutes at a 10K run in Central Park in 1975. His favorite books were the Foundation trilogy by Isaac Asimov, and his favorite book as a child was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which he later shared with his children. Williams was an enthusiast of both pen and paper role-playing games and video games. His daughter Zelda was named after the title character from The Legend of Zelda, a family favorite video game series, and he sometimes performed at consumer entertainment trade shows. Williams was a big fan of anime and collecting figures. His daughter described him as a figurine hoarder. One of his figures was the character Dyunan Newt from the anime film Appleseed, which he was a fan of. He also liked the film Innocence Ghost in the Shell, and received a DVD copy of Paranoia Agent signed by its director, Satoshi Kon. He also became a devoted cycling enthusiast, having taken up the sport partly as a substitute for drugs. Eventually, he accumulated a large bicycle collection and became a fan of professional road cycling, often traveling to racing events such as the Tour de France. In 2016, his children donated 87 of his bicycles in support of the Challenged Athletes Foundation and Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. Religion. Williams was raised and sometimes identified himself as an Episcopalian. In a comedy routine, he described his denomination as "I have that idea of Chicago Protestant, Episcopal Catholic light, half the religion, half the guilt." He also described himself as an honorary Jew, and on Israel's 60th Independence Day in 2008, he appeared in Times Square, along with several other celebrities, to wish Israel a happy birthday. Philanthropy. In 1986, Williams teamed up with Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal to found Comic Relief USA. This annual HBO television benefit devoted to the homeless raised $80 million as of 2014. Bob's Muda, creator of Comic Relief, explains that Williams felt blessed because he came from a wealthy home, but wanted to do something to help those less fortunate. Williams made benefit appearances to support literacy and women's rights, along with appearing at benefits for veterans. He was a regular on the USO circuit, where he traveled to 13 countries and performed to approximately 90,000 troops. After his death, the USO thanked him for all he did for the men and women of our armed forces. Williams and his second wife, Marcia, founded a philanthropic organization called the Windfall Foundation to raise money for many charities. In December 1999, he sang in French on the BBC-inspired music video of international celebrities doing a cover of the Rolling Stones single "It's Only Rock and Roll" for the charity Children's Promise. In response to the 2010 Canterbury earthquake, he donated all proceeds of his Weapons of Self-Destruction Christchurch performance to help rebuild the New Zealand city. Half the proceeds were donated to the Red Cross and half to the Mayoral Building Fund. Williams performed with the USO for U.S. troops stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan. For several years, Williams supported St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Health. Addiction. Later health problems. Death. Williams was found dead in his home in Paradise Cay, California, on August 11, 2014. The final autopsy report, released in November 2014, concluded that Williams' death was a suicide resulting from asphyxia due to hanging. Neither alcohol nor illegal drugs were involved, and prescription drugs present in his body were at therapeutic levels. The report also noted that Williams had depression and anxiety. An examination of his brain tissue suggested Williams had diffuse Lewy body dementia. Describing the disease as "the terrorist inside my husband's brain," his widow Susan Schneider Williams said that however you look at it, the presence of Lewy bodies took his life, referring to his previous diagnosis of Parkinson's. She also revealed that in the year before his death, Williams had experienced a sudden and prolonged spike in fear and anxiety, depression, and insomnia, which worsened in severity to include memory loss, paranoia, and delusions. She noted how we as a culture don't have the vocabulary to discuss brain disease in the way we do about depression. Depression is a symptom of LBD and it's not about psychology, it's rooted in neurology. His brain was falling apart. Medical experts struggled to determine a cause, and eventually diagnosed him with Parkinson's disease. The Lewy Body Dementia Association clarified the distinction between the term used in the autopsy report, diffuse Lewy body dementia, which is more commonly called diffuse Lewy body disease and refers to the underlying disease process, and the umbrella term Lewy body dementia, which encompasses both Parkinson's disease dementia and dementia with Lewy bodies. According to LBDA spokesperson Dennis Dixon, the report confirms he experienced depression, anxiety, and paranoia, which may occur in either Parkinson's disease or dementia with Lewy bodies. In early PD, Lewy bodies are generally limited in distribution, but in DLB, the Lewy bodies are spread widely throughout the brain, as was the case with Robin Williams. Ian G. McKeith, professor and researcher of Lewy body dementias, commented that Williams's symptoms and autopsy findings were explained by DLB. Williams' body was cremated at Monte's Chapel of the Hills in San Anselmo, and his ashes were scattered over San Francisco Bay on August 21, 2014. Aftermath and tributes. Williams' death instantly became global news. The entertainment world, friends, and fans responded to his death through social and other media outlets. Schneider said, "I lost my husband and my best friend, while the world lost one of its most beloved artists and beautiful human beings. I am utterly heartbroken." His daughter Zelda Williams responded to his death by saying the world is forever a little darker, less colorful, and less full of laughter in his absence. President Barack Obama released a statement upon Williams's death. Robin Williams was an airman, a doctor, a genie, a nanny, a president, a professor, a bangarang Peter Pan, and everything in between. He arrived in our lives as an alien, but he ended up touching every element of the human spirit. He made us laugh. He made us cry. He gave his immeasurable talent freely and generously to those who needed it most, from our troops stationed abroad to the marginalized on our own streets. Williams was scheduled to be the black male special guest for the final night of Monty Python's 10-date stage shows in London 1 month before his death, with one of his friends, Monty Python's Eric Idle, but cancelled, stating he was suffering from severe depression at the time. When the show was released on video, it was dedicated to Williams. At the United Nations headquarters on August 12, 2014, Robin Williams was celebrated during the opening of the International Youth Day. In the presence of UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, Assistant Secretary-General Thomas Gass paid tribute to Williams by standing on the pulpit of the ECOSOC chamber and quoting Keating's lines from the 1989 film Dead Poets Society, "Dare to look at things in a different way." Several fans similarly paid tribute to Williams on social media with photo and video reenactments of Dead Poets Society's "Oh Captain, My Captain" scene. Shortly after his death, Disney Channel, Disney XD, and Disney Junior all aired the original Aladdin commercial free over the course of a week, with a dedicated drawing of the genie at the end of each airing before the credits. In honor of his theater work, the lights of Broadway were darkened for the evening of August 14, 2014. That night, the cast of the Aladdin musical honored Williams by having the audience join them in a sing-along of "Friend Like Me," an Oscar-nominated song originally sung by Williams in the 1992 film Aladdin. Fans of Williams created makeshift memorials at his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and at locations from his television and film career, such as the bench in Boston's Public Garden featured in Good Will Hunting, the Pacific Heights, San Francisco, home used in Mrs. Doubtfire, the sign for Parish Shoes in Keene, New Hampshire, where parts of Jumanji were filmed, and the Boulder, Colorado, home used for Mork and Mindy. During the 66th Primetime Emmy Awards on August 25, 2014, close friend and fellow comedian Billy Crystal presented a tribute to Williams, referring to him as the brightest star in our comedy galaxy. Afterwards, some of Williams's best comedy moments were shown, including his first ever The Tonight Show appearance, indicating his great life in making people laugh. Talk show hosts including David Letterman, Conan O'Brien, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy Fallon paid tribute to Williams on their respective shows. On September 9, 2014, PBS aired a 1-hour special devoted to his career, and on September 27, 2014, dozens of leading stars and celebrities held a tribute in San Francisco to celebrate his life and career. British heavy metal band Iron Maiden dedicated a song to Williams, titled "Tears of a Clown," on their 2015 album The Book of Souls. The song looks into his depression and suicide and how he attempted to hide his condition from the public. A tunnel, painted with a rainbow, on Highway 101 north of the Golden Gate Bridge was officially named the Robin Williams Tunnel on February 29, 2016. In 2017, Sharon Meadow in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, the home of the annual Comedy Day, was renamed Robin Williams Meadow. In 2018, HBO produced a documentary about his life and career. Directed by Marina Zenovac, the film, Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind, was also screened at the Sundance Film Festival. That same year, a mural of Robin Williams was created on Market Street, in San Francisco. Work on a book biography was begun by New York Times writer David Itzkoff in 2014, and was published in 2018, entitled simply Robin. In August 2020, Vertical Entertainment released a trailer for a new documentary, Robin's Wish, exploring Williams's battle with Lewy body dementia. The film, directed by Tyler Norwood, was digitally released on September 1, 2020. In a Netflix special released in May 2022, The Hall, honoring the greats of stand-up, inducted Williams into the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. Influences. Williams credited comedians including Jonathan Winters, Peter Sellers, Nichols and May, and Lenny Bruce as influences, admiring their ability to attract a more intellectual audience with a higher level of wit. 43. He also liked Jay Leno for his quickness in ad-libbing comedy routines, and Sid Caesar, whose acts he felt were precious. Jonathan Winters was his idol early in life. Williams, aged 8, first saw him on television and paid him homage in interviews throughout his career. 259. Williams was inspired by Winters' ingenuity, realizing, he said, that anything is possible, that anything is funny. He gave me the idea that it can be free form, that you can go in and out of things pretty easily. 260. During an interview in London in 2002, Williams told Michael Parkinson that Peter Sellers was an important influence, especially his multi-character roles in Doctor Strangelove, stating, "It doesn't get better than that." British comedy actors Dudley Moore and Peter Cook were also among his influences. He told Parkinson. Williams was also influenced by Richard Pryor's fearless ability to talk about his personal life on stage, with subjects including his use of drugs and alcohol, and Williams added those kinds of topics during his own performances. By bringing up such personal matters as a form of comedy, he told Parkinson, it was cheaper than therapy and gave him a way to release his pent-up energy and emotions. 121. Legacy. Although Williams was first recognized as a stand-up comedian and television star, he later became known for acting in film roles of substance and serious drama. He was considered a national treasure by many in the entertainment industry and by the public. His onstage energy and improvisational skill became a model for a new generation of stand-up comedians. Many comedians valued the way he worked highly personal issues into his comedy routines, especially his honesty about drug and alcohol addiction, along with depression. According to media scholar Derek A. Burrell, because of the openness with which Williams spoke about his own life, probably the most important contribution he made to pop culture, across so many different media, was as Robin Williams the person. Williams created a signature free-form comedy persona so widely and uniquely identified that new comedians like Jim Carrey impersonated him, paving the way for the growing comedy scene which developed in San Francisco. Young comedians felt more liberated on stage by seeing his spontaneously diverse range, one moment acting as a bright, mischievous child, then as a wise philosopher or alien from outer space. According to Judd Apatow, the eclectic performer's rapid-fire improvisational style was an inspiration as well as an influence for other comedians, but his talent was so extremely unusual no one else could possibly attempt to copy it. His film performances often influenced other actors, both in and out of the film industry. Director Chris Columbus, who directed Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire, says watching him work was a magical and special privilege. His performances were unlike anything any of us had ever seen, they came from some spiritual and otherworldly place. Looking over most of his filmography, Alyssa Rosenberg at The Washington Post was struck by the breadth and radical diversity of most of his roles, writing that Williams helped us grow up.